It is a brutal snowstorm out there today. So you know what that means? You get really nice bounce light from the window. It's like very nice and soft right now. So just open it up all the way. Oh, it's like really flat and soft, and then kind of cut the curtain a bit. It's, you know, it's more like contrasty. I don't know. Which one's better? Not sure. Okay, so today I want to talk about the set of Contax Zeiss lenses that I've been curating over the past couple months, cinemodding them, converting them to EF mount, and basically putting together a set of lenses that I can use for smaller commercial / narrative projects. The reason I've been doing this is because I wanted a set of lenses that I can work on production pretty well, where I can pull focus with and just be overall more production friendly set of lenses than your typical photo lenses on like a mirrorless camera. And it's also typically cheaper to source vintage lenses than they are to buy a set of, you know, Nisi Athenas or like Typox Chimeras. Those come out to around like $4,000 to $5,000. But you'll see later on in this video, I'll of course break down for this set of Contax Zeiss lenses that I've had. It's a lot cheaper, let's just say that. Vintage lenses have had quite a bit of a comeback in the past couple years. You have your typical like Greg Fraser using it on the Dune and Batman movies, but also I think down to like the prosumer level, people are striving to get a certain look from their glass nowadays because all digital sensors sort of look the same. It's hard to get a bad image out of a sensor, which is why we see the rise of people using older lenses to add some texture, add some dirtiness to their frame. There's an effort to pull away from like the sterile modern look of digital sensors, which is why also we see a rise of film emulation softwares in this day and age of filmmaking. We will touch on that later on in this video. That's a whole nother section of film emulation that we're going to experiment with. Now, getting a set of vintage Soviet lenses, which is, you know, very popular nowadays, was definitely a consideration. However, I ultimately steered away from it because sometimes these lenses can have way too much character. So sometimes the flaring is really bad and they just have aspects of the image that can't really be used universally. If I'm gonna shoot a commercial with like a talking head, I can't have like really swirly bokeh behind the subject, or like if I don't have a matte box on me and like I can't cut the flares, and you know, the sun just washes out the image. It's hard to work with those lenses sometimes when it's not the look that you're going for. Now, I do want to touch a bit on this aspect of like character that people seem to talk about when they talk about lenses. You know, this lens has so much character, this lens has so much nice soft focus. There's some bokeh swirls when I point it at a certain tree or whatever. That's such a strange topic to me because I do like a slightly softer look on my image. I don't think that is what makes a lens inherently good. I think what makes a lens good is what lens is best suited for the story. When we're watching a film, we're not thinking about, oh wow, the filmmakers here like picked the Helios 44-2 because it really gives us that swirly bokeh. Oh, they chose the Petzval lens because the image looks really pretty right now. We're not thinking about prettiness when we think about film. If we're thinking about the bokeh swirls or the focus fall-offs in a film, I think that if filmmakers have inherently done their job badly because we're not engrossed in the story. We're not feeling the emotions that the filmmakers want us to feel. Lenses aren't meant to scream like, look at me, I'm so dreamy. They're supposed to aid in the visual language and put an audience immersed in the world of the story. Choosing a lens with crazy characters sometimes might be the move, but more often than not, it might be a hindrance to the overall story that your cinematography is trying to serve. Which is why at the end of the day, I chose to go for the Contax Zeiss lenses because they produce the most clean and neutral image that I could have found, and also they've been the bastions of filmmaking for the past like 50 or 60 years. They use anywhere from The Shining or Raging Bull, you know, use like versions of the Contax Zeiss lenses. You can go check out Media Division's 40-minute, they make a 40-minute video on like the Contax Zeiss lenses. This video is not meant to be that kind of documentary on the history of it. So cinemodding these photo lenses came at quite a bit of a cost. Let's try to break it down now. So I got the 50 and 85mm lenses for $525. That's because I bought it off this guy off Facebook, I think, and they already came converted to EF and they had like a 3D printed photo focus gear on it, so I can just use that. I might change it out though because they are a bit shaky. So that came out to $525. The 25mm, I chose to go to 25mm instead of the 28mm because I just wanted a bit more wideness on the edge of my frame. That came out to be around $286 $1.34 off eBay. The focus gears for the 25mm was $73.39 off B&H. The EF mount conversion from CinMod came out to be $73.14. And customs, this is a big thing for vintage lenses. A lot of these Contax Zeiss lenses come from out of the country, they come from Japan. So, you know, with the tariffs nowadays, these customs take quite a big chunk of your budget. So that came out to $61.66. The Metabones E to EF adapter, the locking mounts, came out to be around $325.31. I did buy a 35mm Contax Zeiss lens off of eBay, the 2.8 version. I eventually sold that and bought a different 35mm, the 1.4 version, but buying that lens and selling it and flipping it cost me around $27.99. I bought the 35mm 1.4 that I was just talking about and the 135 f2.8 off Facebook for $750. That's actually a really good deal because the 35mm 1.4 on its own goes for upwards of $900 sometimes. So getting that along with the 135 was a big steal for me. I only had to convert the EF mount for this 35mm version because the guy I bought it off Facebook already had some converters and just gave it to me, which was kind of hype. He also had some full focus gears that I just used. Now the issue with the 35mm is I had a really hard time converting the lens, like unscrewing it. The screws were not coming out. I tried using a soldering iron, tried to heat up the screw so the glue melts. I was just not having a fun time with it. It was not working. So I sent it to Salmo Cine in Canada to get it cinemodded. The shipping for that cost $67.35. Importing the import brokerage fee into Canada was $90.49. That's all these different back and forths just cost me so much money. And then the lens service itself, along with the shipping back, cost $162.15. And then importing it back into the US through customs cost $37.85. In total, I spent around $2,500, $10.53. And that was around what I had budgeted for the set of lenses. I did find some really good deals. If I did not find those good deals, it would have cost a lot more money. So I'm blessed to find these good deals off eBay and Facebook and stuff like that. And that kind of evened out with like all the customs and shipping fees that I was not expecting, honestly. Now I do want to talk a bit about, I think companies like CinMod have done a really good job without rehousing them, just modding them, making them as production ready as possible. But sometimes I do feel that they can be a bit finicky on set. Sometimes the focus motor will be jumpy and stuff like that. Sometimes even if you rack too fast, sometimes the focus gear will shift the lens. So you have a bit of jittery movement as you are racking really quick. So that's kind of a downside of modding photo lenses for production. And also the lack of having like aperture gear teeth is also a downside because, you know, I can't be pulling iris while, you know, doing a long gimbal shot, a Steadicam shot. They also have a short barrel throw, so that's just an inconvenience you have to deal with. And I personally went with the EF mount conversions for my Contax Zeisses because the LPL mounts from CinMod are just really expensive. They're like, the EF mounts cost like $70, taxes and shipping included, whereas the PL mounts come upwards of $200 sometimes. It was really cost prohibitive to do an LPL mount, and they don't have standard PL mount conversions. So LPL itself is not really like industry standard where I'm working right now. PL is kind of still the standard, but between LPL and EF, I was just kind of like, I think EF is more universal and also cheaper, so I just went with that in general. Overall, my methodology for doing this test was to best match my camera's settings. Sometimes the focal length doesn't match as well because the camera will shift like ever so slightly between takes. The camera settings are, an exposure is measured by the in-camera metering. So if the meter on read like 0.0 on the Zeiss, I would try to match the 0.0 exposure on the Tamron. Sometimes it'll be hard because I'm trying to tweak the ND to get the target exposure when necessary. So I mean, you can see like some of these tests, like the Tamron definitely has some X patterns from the ND while the Contax Zeiss did not. So I try my best to match it. You can see side by side that some of these examples, the Contax Zeiss is inherently a bit more warmer than like the Tamron lenses. The image on the right, we look at the house here on the side, this white wall here is a bit warmer compared to this white wall here on the Tamron. And overall, you can see for yourself what differences you notice between the two lenses. In my eye, it looks pretty similar most of the time, but the Contax Zeiss sometimes can be ever so slightly warmer. And also the color fringing, honestly, on the Contax Zeiss is a lot worse than the modern optics of the Tamron lenses. As you can see here, when you point at the sun, you can see a lot of fringing around these branches here. Like there's like some blue and purple tints along the edges of the branches. and it is blue ring, while on the Tamron it's kind of just a warm glow. These branches don't really have any artifacting on them. So, you know, that can be a stylistic choice, you know, if you want this kind of circular shape around your flares, whereas the Tamron is just like clean. The focus breathing tool on the two lenses are virtually identical, as you can see from this clip here. You can see the beginning of the clip is here, and then kind of like zooms in a bit, zooms in and out on the Contax Zeiss, whereas the Tamron also has a slightly better focus breathing, just because it's a modern lens. But you can see just a tad bit of in and out. There you go. The Contax Zeiss is definitely more pronounced in terms of focus breathing, but the Tamron has a bit of breathing too. Both are technically photo lenses, so they're not calibrated to, you know, for like massive focus racks. I mean, other than the aperture being a lot blurrier on the Contax Zeiss here, it's really hard to tell the difference between the two. And the warmth. So warmth and background blurriness is a factor here. The Contax Zeiss can be just a tad bit softer, you know, in this comparison. But other than that, it's just really hard to find a difference between the two lenses. Okay, if you see here, look at this telephone pole here. The Zeiss is definitely a bit softer. There's a bit less like detail. Like, let's see, look at this part of the electrical pole here. The Zeiss has a lot less detail in it, and that's definitely a stylistic choice, you know, if you want to kind of kill like the digital sharpness of your image. I guess that's a good thing about the Contax Zeiss, and for the Tamron we can just see all the detail back there. And that's something that honestly, if all you have is mirrorless lenses, you can do a lot in post nowadays. So yeah, I think in general, the Contax Zeiss a lot warmer, a lot more soft, and a lot more color fringing, and just slightly more focus breathing. I think that's the conclusions I've come to with these lenses. But I think overall, like, these are aspects of the modern lenses that you can totally add in post. If I want my shot to be a bit warmer, just tweak the color temp a bit. If I want it to be a bit softer, you can totally do that in post. Color fringing, maybe a bit harder. But I think overall, the reason why I got the Contax Zeiss lenses is for the production readiness of it. They have manual stops on the lenses. I can convert them to EAF mount. I can have a locking mount on them. That's my main appeal for getting the Contax Zeiss lenses. Let me know what you think of these comparisons. Is it really a stark difference between the two sets of lenses, or are we just kidding ourselves with vintage lenses being the ideal dreamy look? I feel like the Zeiss in general are a lot more neutral, a lot more clean. That's why I got them. I don't want too much character in my lenses. But yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments below. So cinematographer Steve Yetlin, famous for shooting a lot of Rian Johnson's films, said this about camera choice.
We often hear filmmakers claim that a certain camera or other delivers special properties, such as unique skin tones or visceral warmth. The dominant narrative in the imaging community is that our selection of camera type or film stock type is a major leverage point in controlling the photographic look. I believe that's a problematic presumption that is not supported by the evidence, and that we can reinvigorate our visual authorship and creativity by updating our mental model. Despite passionate assertions and bold advertising claims, the sober and overwhelming evidence shows that a more useful conceptualization of imaging systems is to think of a camera not as a look maker, but merely as a data collection device or survey instrument that records uninterpreted data about the light coming in through the lens, and that the aesthetics of the photographic look are determined predominantly downstream in the processing pipeline by what we do with the data, not with which instrument collects the data, how we translate it from pure scene information into a final viewable image.
So his main thesis is that cameras are merely a data collection device, and it is ultimately decided how you process that information in post that ultimately determines the look of your project. With modern day digital sensors and even comparing digital to film, he argues that the way you process your footage after you shoot it is more important than what sensor you choose or what medium you choose to even shoot on. So if you would like to emulate film in your footage, a tool that you can use today is Dehancer. Dehancer reached out to me for a review of their product. No money exchange hands. They do not get to preview this video before it comes out. These thoughts are solely my own. All they provided was a subscription to their service so I can test it out and give them a critique of it. We're gonna hear later on this video from a colorist friend of mine about his perspective of Dehancer, but now I'm just gonna show you how I personally use Dehancer and how I color grade with it. Is actually a really simple software to use. So all I'm gonna do here, I have Dehancer installed on my Premiere program here. I'm gonna go into the Effects Control tab, the Effects tab, search Dehancer. As you can see, Dehancer applies a standard look to your footage. What you do now is go to Input, choose Camera. I'm choosing, my camera is the FX3 There we go, FX3S stock 3S Gamut 3 Cine. So that basically interprets the footage into like a rec color space. So after you do your input, you can go into the film tab and you can choose film prints. So this is basically film stocks that Dehancer has loaded into the program that you can choose from. And you can just literally just scroll through and see what kind of film stock you like. The Vision 3 is a very popular film stock. That looks pretty cool. So let's say we go with the Vision 3 50D. And we can add some contrast in the film developer tab. And you can also choose what kind of, how you want the film to be printed. You can go like Cineon, which is kind of flatter. Fujifilm is really nice. The Kodak glossy paper is really cool. You might need to up the exposure a bit on that. That makes it look like super blue and really contrasty, really pops from the image. Another really cool thing that Dehancer makes it really easy to do is the Inhalation and Bloom software. So for a shot like this, if I want to really emulate film, these fluorescent tubes up here will probably have like a reddish glow around them because of, with Dehancer you can add it really easily. Normally if you were to do this in Premiere, you probably add like a bunch of adjustment layers and a bunch of masks. You have to use like different effects to sort of like emulate that Inhalation. But it's really easy. I'm just enabling it. I can turn on mask mode for Inhalation so I can see where I'm affecting. So if I want to go really hard with it, you can see it is adding a slight reddish glow onto the lights here. Taking it out of mask mode, as you can see, we could get that orange glow around these fluorescent bulbs like you would on film. I'll play that. Another tool that I also like to use here is monitor function. I can check what values are clipping on my footage. As you can see here, it's not really clipping, so that's a good thing, I guess. This footage was exposed correctly. I have seen some critiques of Dehancer where some people say it's hard to batch apply settings onto like a bunch of clips. If I were to import a project and I want to start an assembly cut, if I want to mass convert all this footage to Rec 709, I can go to like modify, interpret footage, add a LUT here, and it would basically give me a Rec 709. But I think in Dehancer you can also kind of do that. Let's say you're doing dailies for your project, you kind of roughly grade a couple clips and you want to put that effect onto a bunch of other clips as well. You can go to the LUT generator and just export a LUT to, like, let's say, yeah, to your desktop. So now when we go into our program here, we can, you know, select the clips you want to apply the LUT to. Let's say I just want these 5 clips here. Right click, modify color. I can go add LUTs with my desktop, add this, and replace that. Okay. So now I can, if I want this clip to look similar to this clip of the guitar here, now I have that LUT to apply. So the LUT already is imported into the software. I can edit my footage with this color grade sort of as my reference. So I guess that's kind of a workaround. It kind of is a couple extra steps if you want to. You just batch apply the Dehancer effect to a lot of your clips while editing. It's just one extra step you have to do. So, you know, all these clips now have that Fuji Color Suspiria 1600 film print on it. Okay, so one thing I've noticed while color grading the rest of these clips in Dehancer is that I wish that we got slider functionality for each of these Dehancer digits in like the format of the Lumetri color tab in Premiere. Because so many times when I was color grading this footage, I was thinking, am I pushing this too far? Like, how far am I to the max I can adjust this specific parameter? Because while they do have sliders, which I really do appreciate, it's just, you know, kind of annoying to, if I want to go into input and then I want to change the temperature compensation, like I need to click twice. You know, does that make sense? I need to go here, and then here, and then start adjusting from the sliders, because with the digits it's hard to see what is the max amount of adjustments I can do if I know that I'm really hitting the edge of as warm as I can go. It's kind of hard to see that with just the digits. So having this extra step to go into sliders is pretty hard. So if they could implement a way for it to look somewhat similar to the Lumetri color tab on Premiere, that would be fantastic. So I've just gone ahead and put the Dehancer versions right next to like just a normal Rec 709 conversion version of a lot of these clips. But you can make up your own mind on how different the two clips look. I think the Dehancer version has a lot more depth, a lot more color density present in the footage. As you can see here, the shadows are like nice and desaturated. They're really deep black. Whereas in the just Rec 709 conversion, you can see the blacks aren't crushed as much as the film print versions. And that's how our eyes usually see it too. We see darkness as desaturated, and when something is lit properly, we can see all the color present in it. So yeah, overall you can let me know what you think about these clips, the difference between the Dehancer versions, the film emulation versions, and then just the Rex and Nikon versions. I think you see quite a bit of difference between them because post-production and your color pipeline is such an important part of the filmmaking process. But yeah, let's go over and see what Ian thinks.
So I tried, because Dehancer offers so much of this, like I just try to keep it all within this, within the plugin to see how far I could get. And so I did the thing that like got me closest to what I felt I did with my own personal grade, the Kodak Portra 400. If you notice, so camera, I did Blackmagic Pixis. You'll notice it's just like super dark, like without anything. This is like, this is just the base, right? I reset everything. And so I had to like crank exposure back up. And so you can tell, like, just right off the bat, the contrast is kind of like goofy. And to, find where the contrast is. And one thing I didn't like about it is, like, I have to always, like, when you put the Dehancer plugin on, you have to enable everything. So it's just like, dang, it's a lot to do. One thing that could help, I think, is just setting those primaries up on the top. Because most likely, once you put a LUT on, you're gonna fix the exposure levels, and then contrast. Which is kind of just like all inclusive, I guess. And then your temperature, which they did here, and then like saturation. I think one thing I tried, and I don't have it anymore, but one thing I did was I made the LUT. I like had my grade, and then I tried to put Dehancer's film grain on it, and it gave me like some goofy artifacts. People are trying to just use Dehancer's film grain. Just use Dehancer's. I would just say just use the regular DaVinci film grain, or just keep it all within Dehancer, just because I had some goofy artifacts, and that may have been like a, my problem, I guess. I wasn't able to tackle, I don't know if Dehancer was planning on allowing people to use everything within this to get to a look that they wanted. But after I did everything I thought I could, I still noticed that the shadows weren't as cool as I wanted to, so I had to jump out of it and add a little green blue tint to it.
Yeah, it's like split toning is still like a function that it could probably add that could probably make it better.
Oh, I gotta enable it. Oh!
And we're cutting that part of the video out. But you only can pull it like warm or cool. Like you can't really add like, you can't add like magenta or like green, or if I want the highlights to be like red, I want to add red. Like,
I mean, and I don't even know what color head. I mean, I'm not really sure what this means. I mean, one thing I did notice that was nice, I added a lot of like, just because I'm more specific about the texture I want to see from film emulation, I did like a bunch of this, right? But like, if you just keep it within Dehancer's options and stuff, it doesn't glitch as much. And so,
it runs smoothly.
For mine, if I'm playing this, you can tell it's a little glitchy, right? It's playing at 14 frames.
It's pretty well optimized.
The Dehancer's is, it's really smooth, and so that's nice. Yeah, and I mean, one thing that's, if I wanted to, I guess, keep it all within one node and stuff, is if I wanted to copy paste it to another shot, I'm basically taking everything into the other shot, versus just having a base look and then doing adjustments like you were saying you were doing in Premiere. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, I don't know if I would use this for like everything. I think something quick and that's like very similar. Like the shots throughout the whole project is like very similar, and you're just pretty like happy with like the basic film emu look, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what I came to the conclusion to. If you were like starting out in filmmaking, like beginner colorist, and if you want to just get a quick film emulation look, Dehancer can do that pretty easily. It's pretty like intuitive to learn the software. But like if you are more advanced colorists, probably see a lot of limitations within the software.
Yeah, again, like I'm using this as if this was the only thing I could use, right? Yeah. And so obviously, if I wanted, this is Dehancer's, what I did in the plugin. If I wanted to, kind of key in on the skin here or something, and then
bring it into.
I can totally do that, right? And so that's not hard to do. I mean, I'm sure it can do even more than Premiere, I mean, obviously, because Premiere is like meant for color.
I feel like the interface on DaVinci for Dehancer was a lot better. But in the Premiere version, it's like another drop down to get the slider, basically.
Yeah, dang.
Yeah, so like
that's definitely goofy.
Yeah, but in DaVinci I saw like the sliders already. You know, once you open a category, it's like all the sliders out.
It's already there, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, you know, is like as a colorist, you're doing a lot of like time-consuming work. So like everything you can do to make it a little easier.
Yeah.
Like for me, you know, I could have totally not done group post clip, right, and just like copy paste it at the end of every node structure. But like that's gonna save me a little bit of time for each clip, and so overall, you know, throughout this process of flooding, it's gonna save me like hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so any little thing that, you know, Dehancer can do to kind of save the time.
In DaVinci, do you have to expand the category to like enable or disable, or is there like a quick toggle?
No, I think you have to actually do it.
So that might be something if I want to quickly, you know, disable certain
maybe just an
properties.
on-off, like kind of like almost like a switch thing here, just do, you know, and that might be within DaVinci, like it's a limitation within DaVinci, but like something like this, you know.
Yeah, but for the individual stuff,
it's not bad. It has everything that you need as a, you know, just like basic starting point for film emulation.
Yeah. If you'd like to purchase Dehancer for yourself, you can use my promo code TylerC10. That gives you 10% off your Dehancer software purchase. Overall, I hope you enjoyed this look into the world of Contax Zeiss lenses, and also this look into Dehancer as a color grading software. Hope you learned something. I make these videos just to, you know, experiment with stuff, learn more about the filmmaking gear and equipment I have, and overall try to become a more educated filmmaker, become a more educated creator. So yeah, if you'd like to follow me along this journey, hit subscribe, hit like, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.